Good evening, everyone. It is 6:05, and everyone who's listening at WCBU. Welcome also to our audience watching on cable channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali,
Present.
Councilmember Allen,
Present.
Councilmember Sear,
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Young,
Present.
Councilmember Graham,
Here.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Euler,
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach,
Here.
Councilmember Valpula,
Present.
Councilmember Vespa. You have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Everyone, please join me and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk?
We have a performance this evening, the Elite Holiday Choir performance.
Before we do that, we're going to have a proclamation.
Okay.
The proclamation is recognizing Phi Alpha Incorporated Founders Day and 50th anniversary. And we have with us Mr. Douglas Gillespie, President of the Kappa Pi Lambda chapter of Phi Alpha, and Dr. James Jeffries, Vice President of the Kappa Pi Lambda chapter of Phi Alpha. I think the brothers of Phi Alpha are going to also stand up. I'd like to recognize that one of their own is actually a member of the City Council, Councilman Dr. Andre Allen. Whereas Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on December 4th, 1906 at Cornell University, becoming the first intercollegiate Greek letter fraternity for Black college students, influencing the founding of more than 750 chapters internationally, and serving as a catalyst for social and political action in African American communities. And whereas the Kappa Pi Lambda alumni chapter of Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on September 20th, 1974 in Peoria, Illinois, and has since provided 50 years of community service and leadership through its mission of enhancing the lives of the underserved in Peoria through education, empowerment, and social awareness initiatives. And whereas Phi Alpha develops leaders and promotes brotherhood and academic excellence while providing service and advocacy for our community. Go to high school, go to college, Project Alpha, and A Voteless People is a Hopeless People are all prolific national outreach initiatives that make significant impacts in communities. And whereas the mission for the next 100 years is to continue to set the standard for leadership and service. The Alpha men of Kappa Pi Lambda chapter proclaim, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby recognize and celebrate the Founders Day and the 50th anniversary of the Kappa Pi Lambda chapter of Phi Alpha Fraternity in Peoria, Illinois. Mr. Gillespie, Dr. Jeffries.
I'd like to thank humbly the city of Peoria for allowing us to serve. It is an honor and a privilege for being able to serve the community for over 50 years. We look forward to the next 100 years of serving this community. The youth and underprivileged continue to need our service, but we also need the community support. We thank you, thank you, thank you.
Very welcome. Dr. Jeffries? No?
Good evening, everybody. One of the aims of our fraternity, you heard our motto, but the aims of manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind. And you look through the city, you will see how we do this, how we impact the city. You'll find Brother Allen helping reading to children in the schools, Brother Gillespie. All these brothers here will be in the city. You may not recognize them, but they're somewhere doing something to help this community. So manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind.
Thank you for leading and building character. Next up, are we ready, Stacy? We have a special treat for everyone tonight. Joining us is the Elite Holiday Choir. Many of you know the Elite program founded by Mr. Carl Cannon. And now they have a traveling choir that travels all over. This holiday choir giving holiday cheer. They're not a small group. That's Mr. Bill Cannon standing in the middle out there. Mr. Cannon, Mr. Carl Cannon, coming in between the horseshoe. Good evening, Mr. Cannon. Thank you for joining us. I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
City council members, you have in front of you, community members from 9 different buildings in the city that represent grades 6 through 12. They are a community choir. They have a mission of spreading the spirit of Christmas throughout the city. Thus far, they've made 15 stops with 14 more to go before the mid-month of this month of December. We're going to make a quick stop. Unveil tonight. Okay, let's do it. Before they do the last number, I'd like them to introduce themselves to the mayor, the council, and to the gallery. What is your name? You gotta scream that loud. What's your name? Who do you serve? My community. How do you serve? With respect. Since you know how that works, where are you going? To college. You should make some noise on that. These two represent the east front, the south side, and the near north side. And then you said you're going to college. How do you get paid? Good grades. How do you get paid? Good grades. You're on the move. Who can stop you? Only me. Who can stop you? Only me. Right here. What's your name? Hope. Look at this horseshoe. Right and left. What's your name? Hope. What's your name? Hope. What's your name? Hope. Go get somebody in a horseshoe a hug of hope. And then back to the center. Back to the what's the word? Focus. One more song. And then you go let them do their business. Stand, you ready? Here we go.
Thank you to the elite choir. Thank you for putting us on your stop list, and a great way to start our meeting. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk.
We are at the approval of the minutes.
Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held November 12th, 2024, and the minutes of the special city council meeting held on November 19th, 2024, as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We have one town item. 24-358 is a request from the town officials to approve the November 2024 actual expenditures and to approve the December 2024 anticipated expenditures for the town of the city of Peoria.
Trustee Graham.
Madam Chair, I move to approve as outlined.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the consent agenda. 24-359 is a communication from the city manager with a request to approve the 2025 Peoria City Council regular meeting schedule. 24-360 is a communication with a request to approve the convening of the Abatement Review Board for consideration of the amendment to the Urban Decay Abatement Ordinance. 24-361 is a communication with a request to approve the allocation of community development block grant funds for the rehabilitation of Columbia Park in the amount of $450,000. 24-362 is a communication with a request to approve the low bid of Knapp Concrete Contractors, Inc., and award a contract for the Sidewalks and ADA ramps in 61605 project in the amount of $1,288,627.85, with an additional authorization of $131,372.15 for contingencies, for a total amount of $1,420,000. 24-363 is a communication with a request to approve a contract with GIMAX Corporation for the demolition of residential properties. 24-364 is a communication with request for the following. A, approve the low bid of United Contractors Midwest and award a contract for the Moss Avenue from Western Avenue to Sheridan Road project in the amount of $9,199,121.57, with an additional authorization of $460,878.43 for contingencies, for a total amount of $9,660,000. And B, approve an agreement with Illinois American Water Company to pay for the replacement of the water main on Moss Avenue. 24-365 is a communication with a request to approve a 5-year lease agreement between the City of Peoria and El Mirador in El Rio, LLC, for the use of 110 Northeast Water Street. That's the Powell Press Building. 24-366 is a communication with a request to approve a professional services agreement with IPS Group in an amount not to exceed $500,000 for the Smart Parking System pilot. 24-367 is a communication with a request to approve an agreement with Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley for preliminary engineering services for combined sewer in-system storage in an amount not to exceed $100,000. 24-368 is a communication with request to approve an agreement with HR Green for preliminary engineering services for combined sewer overflow storage in an amount not to exceed $325,000. 24-369 is a communication with request to approve the following. A, approve an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation for the city's participation in D4 Bridge Washing 2025 in Peoria, Marshall, Mason, and Tazewell counties. And B, approve a funding resolution for the city's cost participation in the D4 Bridge Washing 2025 in the amount of $23,000 plus contingencies. 24-370 is a communication with a request to approve a resolution for signatory authority with the Illinois Department of Transportation for authorizing the city manager to sign federal funding forms and electronic signature forms on behalf of the city. 24-371 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance levying a special service area real estate tax in the amount of $100,000 for the tax year 2024 for the Westlake Special Service Area. 24-372 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance levying a special service area real estate tax in the amount of $6,400 for the tax year 2024 for the Lamont Avenue Special Service Area. 24-373 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance making a temporary amendment to Chapter 18 licenses to reduce fees and allow additional locations in Article 17 mobile food vehicles, and to reduce fees in Article 12, street and sidewalk vendors of the Code of the City of Peoria. 24-374 is a communication with request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district for the transfer of property of a legal non-conforming duplex for the property located at 1916 West Proctor Street. 24-375 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance amending an existing special use ordinance number 17978 in a Class R4 single-family residential district to add 3 residents to an assisted living facility for the property located at 1621 North Missouri Avenue. 24-376 is a communication with request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district for the transfer of property of a legal non-conforming duplex for the property located at 1912 West Proctor Street. 24-377 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance amending an existing special use ordinance number 13825 in a Class R6 multifamily district to include 2 new group living buildings for a supervised independent living program for a children's home for the property located at 2130 North Knoxville Avenue. 24-378 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R3 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 2218 West Reservoir Boulevard. 24-379 is a reappointment by Mayor Ali to the East Village Growth Cell Advisory Committee with a request to concur of Blake Eggleston. 24-380 is a reappointment by Mayor Ali to the Tri-County River Valley Development Authority with a request to concur of Patrick Urick. 24-381 is a communication with a request to approve the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for YMPS LLC doing business as Egg Republic at 5315 West Landons Way, contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. And 24-382 is a communication with a request to approve the site application for a Class K rental hall liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Temple Life Peoria LLC, doing business as Temple Live at 400 Northeast Perry, contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve. And that concludes our consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
That's it for 2025.
Are there any items to remove from consent? Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 24-361, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item number 24-362.
362?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham?
361 and 364, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the balance of this agenda.
Seconded by Councilmember Euler. We are approving the remaining items that were not pulled. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-361 is a communication with a request to approve the allocation of community development block grant funds for the rehabilitation of Columbia Park in the amount of $450,000.
We have both Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Graham speaking to this. Councilmember Kelly, you were first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will support this item, but this is the third park belonging to Peoria Park District that we are the primary funder for rehabilitation of the park. Peoria Park District is a public entity. They collect taxes. They're supposed to manage their books. They're supposed to take care of their assets. And here for the third time, I don't know what the whole story is, but here we are rehabilitating another park for them, which is their job. I'm worried that we're going to continue to do this from time to time. We might consider a policy session on just how we support other taxing bodies. If the airport authority needs some money, or ICC needs some money, or the school district needs some money, I don't think we should be, they need to go to their own sources, and if they can't get money that way, then they have to change what they're doing. We have more projects, more needs in our city than we can pay for. And yet we're now kind of on a regular basis shipping money off to the Park District. I don't think this should be done. I would like to request a policy session on these kinds of things, Madam Mayor. But for the moment, I will defer to Councilman Graham's comments, and I suspect he will make the motion. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. And I just want to respond by saying it's called collaboration, Councilmember Kelly. And, sometimes we have to work together for the benefit of our neighborhoods, and that's what this is about, that type of collaboration.
Madam Mayor, it only goes one way.
No, it doesn't go one way.
I don't see any money coming from the Park District.
There's a lot of other resources that may not be in a monetary form, but they're still resources. Councilmember Graham?
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments, Councilman Kelly. However, we have 4 parks that have been languishing for some time, and Tree Wind Park, Morton Square Park, Logan Park, now Columbia Park, needs some help. Collaboration is the name of the game because there's a little more to the Columbia Park rehabilitation than meets the eye. One of the things that we want to leverage as much as possible is the addition of some more land that will be where the new playground equipment and pavilion will go, which they've been dreaming about, as Councilman Euler knows, for many, many years. He lives in that neighborhood. He's an at-large. That's been my district for almost 12 years now. And without the community development block grant funds going for the renovation, rehabilitation of these parks, I suspect they would continue to be on hold and status quo and not doing a whole lot for the neighborhood. If you can picture Columbia Park, we have the almost Norman Rockwell branch, McClure Branch Library there, and we have one very important District 150 facility which will be reopened for the 25-26 school year. That building is being revitalized just as the former Quest building on University is being revitalized. And we have dreamed for some time that we would be able to expand that Columbia Park to perhaps bring in some of the 150 land that they're maintaining that's just green space and blend it in, collaboration again, school district, park district, city, to make that really an outstanding stabilizing influence in our city. If someone could identify some other better utilization of these funds for what's 3 districts now represented by these parks, I would probably say yes. But I think this is a wise use, and I think it will continue to stabilize the neighborhoods in the heart of our city. And I'm so sorry, you're up here to speak, and you go right ahead.
No, thank you, Councilman. I was just here to answer any questions in case they came up, as Director Doolin isn't here tonight. So.
How are we doing with our discussion with 150 on that land that we can blend in with this?
Yes, Councilman, I know we were on a call before Thanksgiving with the school district and the park district regarding the transfer of the land. They are still kind of going through their legalities, but looking forward to moving forward on that part of the project.
Keep us posted. I know the Center Bluff Neighborhood Association people are excited about it. And thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a little apprehensive when the first, I think it was ARPA money we were using for Treewind Park came forward, and then Morton Square Park, of course, being in my district, you look at things a little bit differently that way. But I think, Catherine Murphy, thank you very much for those comments, and the fact that the school district, the park district, and now the city are all collaborating is something that we can actually be proud of, because I don't know about you, but I get phone calls many times from people complaining about things that I have no direct control over as a council member, but I'm able to help them navigate to the right source for that. And I think, Councilman Kelly, your request for a policy session is probably appropriate, because we don't want to do this without being thoughtful. And just seeing the results of Morton Square Park and the impact that has had in the North Valley, I'm going to support this and think it's a great use of the CBG funds. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to ask Ms. Murphy if you could return to the mic, and not to put you on the spot, but just for those who are tuning in, if maybe you can provide clarity on the origin of community block development grants and the eligibility to pass those funding through the city of Peoria to other taxing bodies, just for those who may not be aware of this funding source and how these other taxing bodies are eligible for these funds.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. So we receive this funding directly from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, as we are what's called entitlement community. And with that, as it is a block grant, it is up to us as a local community how we would like to spend that money, as long as it is an eligible activity under the funding. And so one of the eligible activities with this funding is public facilities, which includes outdoor parks and areas for recreation, especially located in our low-income areas. And so that allows us the flexibility to pass it on to those organizations that are constructing those parks. So even if it is another government entity in this case, we're partnering with them to ensure that that park gets completed.
Thank you for the clarity. I think it's good to, just provide guidance on, the processes here. And then also too, yesterday, Peoria Public Schools just named the former Quest Middle School. It's going to be their new dual language learner academy. My 2 oldest kids will be enrolling in there next year. And so that's going to be close proximity to this park as well too. So I think that this is just perfect timing to support this project with the new dual language learner academy coming to the old Quest Middle School, which is going to be a game changer for Peoria Public Schools. So I'll be supporting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Good, that's a good point. Thank you. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm aware that we can do this. I'm aware that this is legal. That was not my point. My point is that we have a park district They're a taxing authority. We don't have any policy in place that addresses this sort of thing. I'm sure that the idea of CDBG funds was that the city would use them for city purposes, not for the purposes of other taxing bodies. I may be the only one who feels this way, but I think that, you know, if we are to name other things that we could use this money for, we could certainly put in more sidewalks in District 1. I mean, there are multitudinous things we could put this money toward. I just would like to see us establish a policy on giving money to other taxing bodies. If the, you know, the park, this is a park district entity, and they are talking with 150 because they're making a deal between the two of them. I guess that's collaboration. We're just there to supply money. You know, I don't see it as quite the same. And others may disagree, but if we could establish a policy session or have a policy session so that we could establish a policy on things like this, I think it would serve this body and it would serve the city.
Noted.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Noted. Yes, you're welcome. We have a motion on the floor to approve. It's been seconded. If there's no more comments, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-362 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request to approve the low bid of Knapp Concrete Contractors, Inc., and award a contract for the sidewalks and ADA ramps in 61605 project in the amount of $1,288,627.85, with an additional authorization of $131,372.15 for contingencies, for a total amount of $1,420,000.
Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I first of all just want to thank former Congresswoman Sherry Bustos in her effort to secure these federal dollars, much needed federal dollars in 61605. My question is regards to clarification. Madam Mayor, I think I'm about 100% certain. Initially, when she approached us, she thought it would be $1 million. She came back and said, I can get more. And that amount was $2 million. And maybe my math is off a little bit. I just kind of wanted to find out if the final amount of the federal dollars, was it 1 million, or, you know, we've got here 1.4. You know, when you talk about concrete work, it is very expensive, and the need is so great. You know, I would want to, if we can, if the amount was $2 million, I would hope that we would be able to secure it and use it, because it won't go very far. But if, like I said, I will support this, but is there some way we could check?
I just don't remember the exact amount. Director Powers?
I believe I believe the amount in the council communication was the award, the directed amount. That's what the bid went out for, was for the congressionally directed amount.
Which was what, sir? 2 million or 1 million?
1.42 or 1.5 probably would have been about 1.5.
So that was the actual allocation they released to us?
Correct, because we would have put the bid out for an amount, because we could have added sidewalk based on the amount.
Okay, all right, well.
I'm sorry, what was the difference between the 1.5 and then what we see here is 1.42?
The bid amount came in.
Oh, okay.
That was if you look at the bidders below.
Okay.
basically you had us anywhere in between that area, so we were willing, we took the low bid for what we had brought into the project.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're happy to get whatever we can. Thank you, Director Powers. With that, Madam Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. This item would be approved 24-362 as noted.
Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-364 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request for the following. A, approve the low bid of United Contractors Midwest and award a contract for the Moss Avenue from Western Avenue to Sheridan Road project in the amount of $9,199,121.57 with an additional authorization of $460,878.43 for contingencies, for a total amount of $9,660,000. And B, approve an agreement with Illinois American Water Company to pay for the replacement of the water main on Moss Avenue. And we need separate motions on each, please.
Councilmember Graham?
Thank you, Mayor. This is another one of these legacy projects that we have been able to execute here in our city with the funds that we have received, part of the Infrastructure Act, Rebuild America Infrastructure Act. And I would just say that the water pipes there in that particular area on Moss Avenue from Sheridan to Western are probably about as old as the ones that broke at Main and University about 8 years ago. If you drive along Moss Avenue after a good rain, it would appear to be Moss Avenue Lake. One block after the next, standing water, you name it, and ongoing pipe leaks that seem to go on forever not being repaired. I think Councilor Jackson and I are thrilled that this project is going to be underway in earnest in the spring. And I know we've been doing a lot of work with the property owners along that stretch of Moss Avenue from Western to Sheridan to ensure that we have the right-of-way access. And Director, if I could just editorialize for a minute, your staff, and I'm thinking not only this project, but Glenn and others that we've completed, MacArthur Highway, et cetera, all over the city, projects, Wisconsin, go right down the line. I think it's been a huge challenge for your staff to execute with all of these projects. And this is almost a historic time to rebuild our city. We haven't had money like this in certainly my lifetime to rebuild the city. And believe me, if it's in my lifetime, it's been quite a while. So Director, I want to thank you and your staff and the engineering companies that we've been hiring to do these projects on getting the money spent so that we don't lose it. Could you make some comments to the council about this? Not just Moss, could be all of our projects.
Absolutely. It's talking about my staff on a good note is easy, Councilor, and thank you. That water main, by the way, is almost 100 years old, so it's due to be relocated. Again, if you look at our capital, in fact, I was just talking to Director Craddy right before the meeting. I don't think Peoria has seen a CIP in the tune of $100 million that you may have before I was here, but nowhere close to that since I've been here, and that's where we were this year. Next year, we'll be close to 80 million, and then, of course, we'll start to come down. But to that point, just the testament of that engineering staff, the model that we put in place, quite frankly, we wouldn't have delivered it if we didn't have the model we have. And kudos, because our contract employees, and that's how we look at these firms that we've hired, they wear our T-shirts. They come to our functions. They have city emails. You've all met them. And in fact, I'd be remiss not to call Andrea out, Andrea Kloffensteiner, City Engineer, Deputy Director Engineering, the Assistant City Engineer, Paula Mendez, I can never get her last name, Silvignoli, excuse me, our Transportation Program Manager, Cindy Lowe's, Mandy Mooberry, our construction program manager, Eric Hansen, who I think is sitting here, stormwater, Greg Myroth, overseeing CSO, Josh Gabbert, instrumental in what we did with the landfill and solid waste with FOTH, Julie Schmidt, overseeing our drainage efforts. All of those people are contract employees with various engineering firms throughout the city of Peoria that do those things on our behalf and do it with pride. And this year alone, again, I'll just run the list. It's December, if I may indulge the council. I mean, I was a little shocked at what we did this year too, with as little interruption to traffic as we did. Glenn just being one. We actually got complimented more than we got any complaints. I think we had one throughout the entire project. But just in 24, what we've completed: Wisconsin Avenue reconstruction, Nebraska Avenue to McClure Avenue, Glen Avenue reconstruction, War to University, MacArthur Highway reconstruction, MLK to Moss, Reservoir pedestrian safety, Ronald Road Drainage Improvement Project, Donald Street Drainage Improvement Project, Lamont Mill and Overlay, CSO Year 2, Glen Oak Avenue Mill and Overlay, concrete repairs, sidewalk, and close to a mile that we did an operation of curb and gutter in the stormwater utility, Glen Oak Avenue Mill and Overlay, further concrete repairs throughout the city, downtown wayfinding, seal coating, a part of our pavement preservation, the riverfront entrances. Ongoing projects are Adams one-way to two-way conversion, which you get weekly updates on. We're wrapping up year 1. We'll go into year 2 next year with a focus on the bump outs for year 1. And next year we'll go Jefferson Avenue bump outs. Nebraska Avenue reconstruction project, I-74 overpass to Sterling. Reconstruct from Park Avenue to I-74 overpass, wrapping up by the end of the month. And then in year 2, stages 3 and 4, reconstruct the lanes from Park Avenue to Sterling Avenue. Pioneer Parkway and University Street intersection construction project, year 1, will focus on the reconstruction of Pioneer Parkway lanes. And year 2 will be reconstruction University Street lanes. Depot Street construction, year 1 will be stage 1, of course. That's a 2-year project. Actually, I think a 3-year project. CSO year 3 will take place, which is a full year project in and of itself. Adams Street lighting, the concrete pole system replacement. Prospect lighting, our microsurfacing pavement preservation. Stormwater lining repairs, which is again an annual process that we go through. Storm sewer cleaning and inspection, again ongoing. Storm sewer annual repair. Native plants at Orange Prairie. We did a pilot at Dries, so if you come next spring, it's all dead now. Please come next spring and look at the native prairie that we planted at Dries. And then on a facility, starting next year, Moss Avenue, and then sidewalks in 61605, which we just talked about. And if I could, just from this facility side, if you've been to our facility, I think I mentioned this, we just moved into our new offices. If you come over there now, one, you'll get lost, so get somebody to give you a tour. But Jason Meeks did an outstanding job in overseeing the project for the remodel of our offices at Dries Lane. And what we're doing with Native Prairie is a pilot. It looks fantastic. So next spring, come see it when the plants come back and the bees are back. And beyond that, we actually have an award-winning design for Riverfront Park. So we find money for that. We're looking great. So thank you, Counselor, for bringing it up. I was prepared. The engineering division has really knocked it out of the park this year, and I think they'll do the same next year. Again, they delivered close to $100 million this year. 80 next year should be no problem.
Well, I've been here for 23 years, and this is historic, the rebuild of our city, and I think we should all take pride in what we've been doing, that we've touched almost every part of our city. And, you know, as being a district council in the past 12 years, when we have that all-important meeting with the neighbors before we begin a project, it's always nice to have Mandy Mooberry there when they ask questions and they seem so nervous. And the Mooberry rule is articulated, this ain't our first rodeo. And, you know, I thought we'd have a lot of complaints during the Glen Avenue reconstruction. The only complaint I got was, can't you get the police out there to slow those motorists down, because those workers out there need to have more safety. So you've done a lot, and you've done it almost seamlessly. I know it's not, but because of the professionalism, you've done an outstanding job, Director, and I don't know when you sleep, but Mayor, thank you. And I would like to make a motion
Yes, please.
to approve A, the low bid of United Contractors Midwest and award the contract for Moss from Western to Sheridan Road in the amount of $9,199,121.57 with an additional authorization of $460,878.43. That's 5% for contingencies for a total amount of $9.66 million.
Seconded by Councilmember Velpula. Any additional comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Item A passes unanimously. Councilmember Grant?
Yes, and I move to approve that agreement with Illinois American Water Company to pay for the replacement of the water main on Moss Avenue.
Seconded by Councilmember Velpula. Okay. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Item B passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Director.
councilors.
You were ready. Thank you, Director Powers. Madam Clerk.
We are on to the regular agenda. 24-383 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request to approve the sole source purchase of a retrofit and modernization upgrade for the paint truck with Mark Wright Lines Equipment Company, Inc., in the amount of $375,000. And this item requires 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes.
Madam Manager.
Here, Director Powers back at the podium to discuss this item. If you can please, Director.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again, Mayor, Council. I believe this is for the paint truck. I was walking away thinking I was done and realized it was irregular. This is easy. A new paint truck in today's world is between $1.1 and $1.5 million. We are going to take our paint truck, deliver it to the manufacturer in Montana, have it upfitted to last probably another 15 years for $375,000. We'll get electronics, a lot more reliability out of this chassis, a lot of years, and not hit the capital budget. The other side is we have a really good director in our finance department who is going to encumber our operational funds from this year to pay for it, so we don't carry this $375,000 expense in next year, because they are taking delivery of the truck. As soon as you approve this, which I hope is tonight, we will set up transportation to have the truck delivered. So I hope to have your support for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When Public Works holds their open house every spring, when I remember taking my boys out to see this striping truck, and that is just such a critical piece of equipment that often goes overlooked. So I'm happy to move for the approval of this item.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Valpula. Okay. Councilmember Kelly, you were going to do the same thing, I take it? Okay, all righty. Any other discussion or questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-384 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request to approve the sole source purchase of traffic signal detection systems from Traffic Control Products in the amount of $39,500. And this item requires a 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes.
Director Powers?
Again, this is the culmination of a study that we began here, and actually that you requested us to do relative to parking throughout the city and to modernize our parking system. This would be a pilot that would basically study our parking environment regarding what they could do with remote parking apps, available parking, using license plate readers for violations, the full gambit of what we might be able to get through using technology to leverage our parking system throughout the city.
Any questions from Director Powers, or can I get a motion? Councilmember Gordon Young,
I move to approve item 384.
is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you
Madam
again,
Clerk?
Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Director Powers.
24-385 is a communication from the City Manager and Chief of Police with a request to approve the sole source purchase of DroneSense, the drone management subscription platform, and approve an agreement with Unmanned Vehicle Technologies for 5 years of service in the amount of $124,900. That's $24,980 per year. And this item requires a 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes.
Madam Manager?
Item?
Chief?
Good evening. Thank you, Council. So DroneSense is how we use our drones and utilize them outside of the operator. I have the subject matter expert here that you've discussed with before, Sergeant Stenson, if you have specific questions. But essentially, we've been using DroneSense for free to manage our drone fleet. And for the end user, for me, it allows everybody to see what the drone sees outside of the operator. So we can cast it to a phone, we can cast it to an iPad. Everybody can see it that we want to see it. For Sergeant Stenson and his team, it's maintenance, it tracks the path of the flight of the drone, and that's all on our transparency page. We don't hide any of it. It's all available, but it's essentially what is happening is DroneSense has changed their fee structure, so we asked them to go out as far as they could so we can secure pricing. It is changing in '25. It is going to go up over 5 years. We're going to save $34,000, but that's not, we don't believe that's the actual number because we believe the fee structure is going to keep changing because that's what they're telling us. So what we're doing essentially is forecasting known costs for the next 5 years. And those costs, we believe, are going to be going up exponentially, and we can't determine what they're going to be. So we have locked in this rate for 5 years. That's as far as they would go out, and we believe it's a fair price for what we're getting. And after '25, we won't be able to control those prices. So that's the summary on DroneSense.
Thank you, Chief Dixon. Good to see you, Sergeant Stinson. Councilmember Graham?
Thank you very much, Chief, you or Sergeant Stinson. Will these drones be positioned where we have hotspot areas? Could be, might not even be the territory where we have ShotSpotter. Wherever the action is, they're ready to go?
So, yes, we have, and how many operators do we have? We have 21 licensed operators. You have to be licensed. There's a Part 107. So we have established an actual drone team. The current state statute, it has to be a dispatch call. We can't just put them up in the air. But the way we are deploying the drones is the operators have them throughout the city constantly. And anytime there's an incident, that the drones go up in the air and they'll, at night they use the thermals. It's an incredible tool for us. But we don't have a drone as a first responder program yet where they're strategically positioned and then they go up with a ShotSpotter, but they are positioned in each district with our licensed operators.
Now, those licensed operators may or may not be Peoria police personnel.
They're all currently police personnel.
They're all police personnel.
Other than the fire department has some as well. We look to expand that for other units in the city that may need to use the drones.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. Do you have a motion?
Yes, move to approve as outlined.
Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Stick around, Chief. Madam Clerk.
24-386 is a communication from the city manager and chief of police with a request to approve the sole source purchase of one police canine with a specialty in explosives detection and patrol function from Southern Police Canine Incorporated, located in Spring Hope, North Carolina, in the amount of $17,000. And this item requires a 2/3 vote of council members voting, no less than 6 votes.
Chief Dixon.
All right, thank you again. So this is specifically about canines. We, in January, we have 4 canines total. We have 1 bomb dog and 3 narcotics dogs. That's their specialty. They're all dual purpose, so they can all do searches. They can all do, there's a litany of things they all do, but their specialties is either narcotics or bomb squad or bomb type indication. So 2 of our narcotics dogs are retiring in January, so that will take us down to 2. We're asking to fill 1 of those spots, will bring us up to 3, and the specialty of the dog would be bomb or EOD, and work with our bomb units. So most of our deployments in the city, most of the utilizations are for bomb purposes. So if you think of some of the venues that come to Peoria, they have to have dog sweeps for the venues to come here, or they won't come here. So we get a lot of utilizations. We use them at our events downtown. We use them Saturday mornings downtown. So we do a lot of sweeps with the dog. We get a lot of requests for the dog. We get a lot of, it's the #1 requested dog for that specific purpose. So at this time, we're going to replace a 2nd dog for EOD, which is our Explosive Ordnance Division. So it'll be essentially be a bomb dog. And then as our personnel increases, we'd like to come back and chat about the narcotics dog.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Chief Dixon? Can I get a motion? Moved by Councilmember Gordon Young, seconded by Councilmember Seer. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief Dixon. Sergeant Stinson. Madam Clerk.
24-387 is a communication from the city manager and fire chief with a request to approve the low bid from Peoria Metro Construction and award a contract for the demolition and construction of Fire Station Number 16, located at 2105 West Northmore Road, in the amount of $4,238,526, with up to an additional $150,000 for contingencies.
Madam Manager.
I have Chief Solberg here to give you more about this item. A long journey to get here, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, distinguished council, and Madam Manager. We've been working on this project since 2023. I do have to give flowers where they're due. City Manager Urick worked extremely hard to secure these state grant funds. And then he put Jason Meeks, our facility maintenance manager, and myself to work, and this is where we're at today. This has been a long-awaited project to start, so we're excited to have this in front of you tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Capital improvements make me excited, especially when they're in District 4. I appreciate everyone who's been involved to help land this plane. I believe Senator Kaler helped secure the funds for the station, and so we were very excited about this. This is one of the oldest, believe is the oldest fire station in the city of Peoria, so this is going to be great for that area. Chief, can you talk a little bit about timeline from potential breaking ground and then possible any type of interruptions on Northmore Road for the listening audience, please?
Yes. So what we have been working on behind the scenes, knowing that we already know who the contract was going to be secured with Metro. So we've had the ability to kind of start working on that timeline. So once this passes tonight, hopefully, we've already been working with Metro right now. So the anticipation is once we can secure those permits, we can start work the 1st of January and then be in the fire station by the last quarter of 2025. We've been guaranteed up to this point that there'll be no lane closures on Northmore, even though we do have a demolition, that will happen in January and February. With that being said, obviously there'll be increased traffic flow. Once we have that timeline established and what that looks like from Metro, then we're going to circulate that to the surrounding neighborhoods.
And can you speak to calls for service currently, how they're being directed with this fire station not currently being utilized?
Yeah, and while that's not ideal at all, that fire station houses engine 16 and truck 14. Engine 16 is currently located at station 19, and truck 14 is responding out of station 15, which is on Detweiler. But what we do challenge our crews is that with working a 24-hour shift during that 12 a.m. period, those resources are trying to stay in that Rolling Acres area so that they can keep response times where they should be.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. And again, thank you, everyone, for working for this. And I would like to make a motion for approval. Thank you.
Seconded by Councilmember Euler. Any other questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
24-388 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Emergency Communications Center with a request to approve a 3-year contract with Tyler Technologies to replace the computer-aided dispatch and police records management system, with the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year terms.
Madam Manager.
Thank you again. I am excited about this project as well, a multi-year planning project that's ready for implementation. We have here our ECC Director, Blaney, to give you more details of this project and also funding sources for this as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, Madam Manager. Our current computer-aided dispatch system and records management system has been in place since the mid-1980s. It served us well for many years, but we did feel like it was time to explore all available options to ensure that we had the CAD and RMS software that best meets the needs for all of Peoria's first responders. Although the system is one of the main components of our emergency telecommunicators job functions, it's also an integral part of both our police and fire departments, as well as one of the most important pieces of software that our information system supports. In the spring of 2022, we began the RFP process with the help of DeltaWorks. They're a public safety consultant that specializes in CAD and RMS systems. After a thorough review of all the responses to the RFP, Tyler Technologies was selected as our top-ranked proposer. We did work with Jenny, the grants coordinator with the Peoria Police Department, to secure some federal funding through the COPS Technology Grant, which will cover the software fees and any implementation fees that are due in 2025. While Peoria Police and Peoria Fire are by far the biggest utilizers of the system, we are working with the user agencies on cost-sharing structure for 2026 and beyond.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Director. Can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Velpula. Councilmember Graham?
Director Blaney, could you tell us about the COPS technology grant and to what extent it's going to help pay for this?
Yeah, so the amount that we received from that was $2 million, and so that will cover the entirety of the software fees that are due for 2025, should this be approved, and any implementation fees in 2025, and then some of those fees in 26 as well. So this is not anything that we would need to contribute for, anyone would need to until 2026.
This is not a luxury purchase. What would happen if we continued to allow this technology to decline and possibly be preyed upon by those who don't wish our city well? What would happen if we just let it go as it is?
Yeah, the current system that we are in does have an end of life, so the support would cease. It would have some security risks with that, and the software system that it's on, the operating system, is at its end of life as well. So that's the kind of the biggest thing that we can see, but we also see a degradation of service that both police and fire would receive because of the lack of integration with a lot of the technologies that they're utilizing today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Councilmember Gordon Young?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As someone who formerly worked with you in dispatch, first of all, I want to thank you for your leadership and just the way that you've navigated this space, but then also just an appreciation I want to recognize for the fact that dispatch is the artery of emergency communications. And for this type of advancement to come before us, I'm very, very proud to support something like this. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
24-389 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request for the following. A, approve the retention and authorize the City Manager to enter into an agreement with Innovation Capital LLC for investment banking services relating to the potential land-based casino in the City of Peoria. And B, approve the retention engagement letter with John Elias McGinnis and Saghetti, PC, for legal services relating to the potential land-based casino in the City of Peoria. And we'll need separate votes on each, please.
Okay. Corporation Counsel Hayes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Welcome.
So there's been quite a bit of coverage about why we're retaining these firms, and I just want to give a brief explanation. In March of this year, the Gaming Board held a hearing where Boyd Gaming appeared. They are the operators and licensed operator of the Paradise Casino. There's an exchange between Boyd and the Gaming Board administrator that led the city to believe that Boyd and the Gaming Board were discussing land-based casinos as part of a facilities expansion by Boyd Gaming. The city has previously met with Boyd way back in 2020 to express the issues that the city felt surrounded any shift of the present casino operations to land-based operations. As the council may know, the initial intergovernmental agreement that provided for the location of the riverboat on the East Peoria side of the river and the revenue split that both East Peoria and Peoria has enjoyed for many years contemplated that if there was ever land-based casino operations, it would be within the city of Peoria. State law also echoes that sentiment. The current license that's authorized in statute for operations of a riverboat in East Peoria states right after that, and with board approval, land-based operations within the city of Peoria. So both our intergovernmental agreement and state law give respect to the initial agreement of the parties that served the parties well for many years, and our hope is that it will serve the parties well into the future. That said, a major casino expansion is a significant financial undertaking. And in order to approach Boyd with the best team and scenarios possible, we felt it very important to retain an industry-leading investment banking firm to help us with the financial advice to make sure that if we were making proposals on land acquisition, build-out, other facilities, significant financial operations that take quite a bit of experience, that we would have a team partner that knew exactly what it was doing and that would express to Boyd that we were taking this opportunity seriously and want it to be successful for all involved. So with that, we've suggested the retention of Innovation Capital LLC. They've been involved in a number of gaming industry financial transactions throughout the nation, including a couple notable ones within the state of Illinois. They were the lead financial advisor for the Jumers casino in the Quad Cities, and they were also a financial advisor to the major transaction for the Chicago casino that I'm sure you're all aware of. We'd also like to add to that team John Elias from the Elias Law Firm. John was actually one of the critical lawyers involved in the Jumers casino project up in the Quad Cities. He's been working in gaming law for many years. We've done a number of projects both with John and John on the other side of the table. He knows what he's doing. He has a lot of credibility and acumen and makes our team, rounds out our team in a way that I think would be compelling for Boyd for its considerations of the options within the city of Peoria. With that, we'd ask for your consideration and approval, both the retention of Innovation Capital, as well as with John Elias. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. The original agreement between East Peoria and Peoria wasn't attached to this, but we can certainly send it out to all the council members. But speaking to that, Council Hayes, would you agree that it's very explicit in that agreement that any land-based casino in this area between Peoria and East Peoria shall be in the city of Peoria?
Yes, those clauses are not opaque or confusing. They're quite simple, direct, and straightforward. So simply stated, that is the bargain that was struck back in the early 90s. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank you for your leadership on this and tenacity in making sure that the intergovernmental agreement from 1991 and the state statute, thank you, Councilor Hayes, for that, is honored and respected. So with that, I will move for approval.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Valpula. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corporation Counsel Hayes, I just had a question regarding the retainer fee of $10,000 that we will be paying as we are in this agreement with this legal resource here. Is there a tentative timeline or sunset possibly where we would get to a certain point where if we don't get an agreement done, we would fold it, or is the goal just to continue to keep billing until we reach an agreement optimistically?
Thank you, Councilman Allen. The agreement speaks to an initial 6-month term. We anticipate the retention will remain in place until we achieve clarity whether we're going to have a transaction or not. There's also a transaction fee to the financial advisor firm of $250,000. And so it's our view that this matter should take somewhere between 6 months to a year to determine the outcome. It may take longer, but that's the best estimate we can provide today. One reason that we know that most of that activity will take place during 2025 is that the Boyd and the Gaming Board have indicated that their facilities expansion plan is due in March of 2026. So we should have some clarity during the calendar year 2025 about whether we're proceeding with the transaction with Boyd or not.
And can you speak to where we're funding this transaction out of?
Initially, the funds, particularly for the monthly retainers, will come from the legal department outside counsel fund. So that doesn't require a budget amendment. We keep an eye on those expenses and other matters that may affect that portion of the budget. So we may need an adjustment over time, but initially that's how we're able to do that and offer that opportunity for the council without an adjustment to the budget today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. And this is item A that was moved upon and seconded. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Move for approval of item B.
Seconded by Councilmember Valpula. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
24-390 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to concur with recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from a Class I-2 Railroad Warehouse Industrial District to a Class I-3 General Industrial District, and to obtain a special use in a Class I-3 General Industrial District for chemical processing for the properties located at Edmonds Street, North Cedar Street, parcel identification number 18-17-277-006, 1 Edmonds Street, and 1320 Southwest Monarch Street, all in Peoria, Illinois. And on your desk, there is a handout on yellow paper of a revised ordinance.
Madam Manager?
Thank you. I'm going to first give the floor to Corporation Counsel Hayes, but we also have here Assistant Allison, Community Development Assistant Director here as well to answer any zoning questions.
I'm always happy to have Assistant Director here because she helps me out when I err. So hopefully she can help with some of the technical zoning questions that might come up. We have a tremendous opportunity that's been presented. Virtus Chemical of Columbus, Nebraska was awarded the Green Chemistry Challenge Small Business of the Year Award in October of this year from the US EPA because of its industry-leading, environmentally sensitive production process for ethyl acetate, which is a solvent that's widely used in many products, many consumer products that you would be familiar with. So nail polish remover comes to mind because it's one thing that I'm familiar with from my household. So most of us use that quite often, and this process is quite advanced and has a level of environmental sensitivity that leads the industry. They use for one of their main production products, what they need to develop their product is produced now at the BioUrgia plant. So BioUrgia has approached the city with a zoning request to expand their facility to the north on an area that isn't presently zoned for, but would be if the council approves zone for chemical processing. So we have an industry-leading, award-winning producer willing to disassemble their award-winning plant in Columbus, Nebraska, and reassemble it here if we grant this zoning request and allow for that. Council might recall that when we put together the distillery TIF, there was interaction between the city and advocates for the environmental justice area there on the south side of Peoria. Because of that interest and concern, the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity approached the city and have been negotiating terms that would be conditions of this zoning. I want to indicate to council that through late afternoon today, we were negotiating those terms. And I want to thank the chair of the committee, Tim Birchie, who had a number of calls with me today, Council for BioUrgia, Council for Virtus Chemical. We worked together to come up with a set of conditions that's acceptable now to all involved, that addresses the environmental concerns, and that will allow us to proceed with this with some level of certainty that we're going to understand what's going on in that factory. We're going to understand what their status is with regard to the Illinois EPA and the US EPA, that they're in compliance with their environmental requirements, and that if there are any compliance issues that arise, we'll be aware of them, and then we can make a determination of whether or if to take any enforcement action as it relates to your zoning approval. So this is a forward-looking agreement. It's got elements of participation from a very concerned citizens group. We're addressing the environmental concerns, and by all indications, this as an industrial expansion is sensitive to the environment, leading edge technology, and the type of material that will, or the type of advancement that we can use to build business, build jobs, build the south side of Peoria back as an industrial manufacturing center, but in an environmentally sensitive way. Thank you for hearing me out, and we hope that you'll consider approval.
Yes, I appreciate those negotiations. I am going to ask if there's no objections for Attorney Tim Birchie, if you would approach and let us know where things stand from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excuse me. And Patrick did a wonderful explanation of what's been going on in our work on this over the past few days. I'm happy to say that we have reached an agreement, and I'm here to support the addition to the special or the addition to the zoning through the special conditions, which I think has been provided to you. Now, I don't know what the procedure is, and someone will have to figure that out, what the motion would be. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I do want to make just a few comments. I want to say, as kind as Patrick was making comments about me, the city really stepped up here and to involve our group, in particular our environmental justice work group, in their efforts to make sure that we achieved some degree of protection for the community that went beyond just what zoning ordinance would provide for. And, I think we accomplished that. I don't know we got all that we would have wanted, but frankly, we got a lot. And we got what I would hope would be a template for the future as we go forward with projects of this nature. And it was, I thought, very promising too that BioUrgent participated in this and Veritas participated in this. And so we have a win-win. As we said, all parties came together and found an agreement that we can live with. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but I would like to introduce one of the co-chairs of our environmental work group, and that's Cecilia Eladad, who has just a few comments about, I know we're going to be, we don't want to run late, but I'd like Cecilia just to make a few comments if she could, Mayor.
Yes.
Cecilia?
Thank you, Tim, and I hope you'll forgive my formality. I prepared a brief statement that I'd like to read. My name is Cecilia El-Haddad, and I am a co-chair of the Environment and Climate Work Group of the Peoria Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity, and I live in the Hamilton Park neighborhood of Peoria in Councilwoman Jackson's district. I come before you to speak about the proposed zoning change that would allow Veritas, a chemical processing company, to establish a new plant on Peoria's south side. Before I begin, I would like to thank City Manager Patrick Urick for bringing this issue to the attention of my work group, and also Tim Birchie for all of his hard work negotiating and collaborating. Tonight, the City Council will vote on an ordinance that would rezone the proposed area for Veritas' new plant. Given that the south side of Peoria is designated as an environmental justice impacted area, I request that special conditions be added to the ordinance to ensure that the south side shares in the benefits of this new economic opportunity and is protected from further environmental harm. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency defines environmental justice as, quote, the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies, end quote. Meaningful involvement requires, quote, providing notice of and engaging in outreach to communities or groups of people who are potentially affected, end quote. The conditions proposed ensure that BioUrgent and Veritas provide notice of pollution that affects the Southside community by publishing compliance reports to an easily searchable location. They also ensure the Southside is provided notice of Veritas' emergency plan. Given that the residents of the Southside community will be negatively impacted by the pollution generated by the new Veritas site and the continuing pollution of BioUrgent and other companies in the distillery footprint, the Environment and Climate Work Group feels the Southside community should also benefit from the economic opportunities it has to offer. When Veritas collaborates with the Southside community organizations mentioned in the conditions, it will meet the criteria of meaningful involvement described earlier. The conditions will improve the transparency and build trust with the Southside community and address the legacy of structural racism that has affected the Southside community. The special conditions recommended by the JCRJE Environment and Climate Work Group will better enable the Commission and our work group to meet the Commission's responsibilities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I hope you will consider adding the special conditions to the ordinance on which you will vote shortly.
Thank you.
If I could, just one final comment. We talked about the commission. I'm very proud of, obviously, the Racial Justice and Equity Commission. Because we negotiated on this this afternoon until 4 o'clock, something like that, we haven't had time to have a meeting to actually have the whole commission vote on this. We'll vote on it to ratify what we've done here in about a week. I think we have a meeting a week from Thursday, but I have no doubt that we will approve, and we ask you to approve this evening. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Mr. Birch. And just the special conditions agreed upon on the very back page of the yellow sheet. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to commend everybody for the collaboration that took place on all sides. And if I could, I just want to share just a few comments I shared with Mr. Gillian, one of the leaders at Peoria this afternoon in a text message. And it was just that the fact that I hope this collaboration is the impetus for bridging a gap and creating a positive relationship and an opportunity to educate our community about Peoria and its hopefully efforts to bring forth more transparency in the future. So again, I just want to congratulate everybody for collaborating so well together. And Mr. Birchie, if I heard you correctly, you said something about a meeting, but one last point I would like to see, and the city manager and I talked about this, at some point, opportunities for public meetings so that all the folks in the first district, including the South Side, can get to know these relatively new business owners and find out a little bit more about all of the things they're doing over there. And so going forward, I hope we're able to do that, and I hope to be a part of what will be one of many public meetings between the community and Peoria as we move forward to not only create more jobs, bring more jobs, but environmentally sensitive measures in place as we help to redevelop and rebuild our community on the South Side. So I appreciate everybody's effort. Thank you, Mr. Hayes and city staff and everybody. And with that, Madam Mayor, can I go ahead and make this motion that we approve item number 24-390? If there was any other comments that we do need to make, I think if I could privilege.
Go ahead and make your motion.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make my motion that we approve item number 24-390.
Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Okay. Any other discussion? Councilmember Graham?
Thank you. Assistant Director Allison, when the Planning and Zoning Commission heard about this particular proposal, did they have benefit or knowledge of what was worked out at 11:59 p.m.?
Are you referring to the
today?
No, these negotiations were after the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held in last week, in the first week of December.
November. To me that it's a disservice to our Planning and Zoning Commission to bring information to them that's incomplete. They're completely unaware of some of the initiatives that have been taken today. We may not have had one dissenting vote. It just seems like it's been done in a backward fashion. I just think it's wrong. Mayor, we appoint Planning and Zoning Commission members to give it their best shot to evaluate projects like this. They then make a recommendation, and then, as I said, at 11:59, all of a sudden today, we have something that supposedly is going to allay our anxieties about this development down there. It doesn't allay my anxiety. And I note that this, if it's approved tonight, is subject to the issuance of the appropriate building permits in coordination with Peoria Fire Department for a fire and hazmat emergency response plan with the appropriate training and equipment. That hasn't been done yet.
Not yet, but that would be a part of, if approved, what we would follow through at a later time when this actually comes to, if it comes to fruition, then we would ensure that that condition is met.
would it appear that that's just all ministerial and perfunctory and there won't be any hang-up putting together a hazmat emergency response plan? I did talk to the fire chief today about it. And is that your impression, that there's not going to be any problem providing the necessary safeguards for this neighborhood near our downtown?
We will work very closely to make sure that that's adequately met with the fire department's blessing on that, yes.
More and more frequently when we have developments occurring down by the river here in this city, we need to be very, very careful because our downtown is filled with people. I'm going to have about 6,600 people living in our downtown warehouse district within about a year, year and a half. We already have thousands of people. Everything must be done with an eye to safety. And, you know, the Illinois River is such a huge asset for us. We're a city by a river. And so when we do things at the last minute, that helps to ensure safety for our citizens, it bothers me. I don't think things should be done at the last minute. So I'm going to support it reluctantly, but I hope that we'll have a better, normally I'm not a process person, but this is so critical, what we're doing in our downtown area with all the money that's been invested, all the people living down there, the souls that live down there, and the importance to their health. And if nothing goes wrong, that I am going to be a process person on this. But I'm going to be nice and I'm going to vote for it. But I think that it should be done different next time. Anything we're going to do along that river in our downtown should be really looked over carefully and shouldn't be left at the last minute.
Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I appreciate your concerns, Councilmember Graham. This is what I liked, what I appreciate about this process. I was on the phone as well today, and what it said to me that all sides were willing to continue to talk. And even as we move forward to approve this tonight, your very concerns and others about safety, I believe, will continue to move forward, sir. And so for me, it's the first step in trying to build trust with these companies that obviously have decided to do things a little bit differently to protect our environment. So there's been a give and take on both sides, and I appreciate, we talked about deferring this, but I believe that even as we move to approve this tonight, that whole process with regards to safety and everything that you have brought forward will continue to move forward and be put in place as we move forward to see this project go forward. And with that, Madam Mayor, if I could I just have privilege of the floor for just one person to come forward, Mr. Antonio Liscum, who had also been integral in the collaboration. Thank you.
What's the name again?
Antonio Liscum.
Okay.
Hello, our dear mayor and city council persons. Thank you for allowing us to have a word concerning this matter. My name's Antonio Lipscomb, and I stand on behalf of Southside Community United for Change. Martha Ross was not able to attend tonight, but we appreciate the opportunity. She appreciates the opportunity to meet with Mr. Cornell, the chief, what's his name again? McConnell, Chief McConnell, last night, and we appreciate that opportunity to meet with him. And we look forward to building a collaboration relationship with Verista in the future. Southside United for Change endorses the special conditions. We do want to point out the fact that we would like to have the opportunity to be a part of the hiring process for those people that would be working in that plant. We do have a concern with the environment. We met, of course, with the environmental A group of Peoria joined the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity to encourage the city to add to the Section 2 zoning change ordinance the provision of allowing the Southside United for Change to have the opportunity again to be a part of the hiring process for a student, for, of course, we have students, but residents that would be in the area on the south end. We want to be reassured the south end shares in the economic benefit of this new plant. We urge the City Council to add special conditions presented in Section 2 of the zoning change ordinance to include, again, the Southside United for Change to participate in the hiring of those that would be working in this plant. Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilmember Jackson?
Oh, Mayor.
No. Council Hayes?
I didn't do a very good job describing the special conditions that were added as attachment D to the ordinance. That's why you have a yellow sheet in front of you, and the public doesn't have this unless they have the updated version of the agenda, which is available online now. But I would just point out, specific to this speaker's query, is that Virtus, who will be the new employer there, will prioritize employment opportunities for Southside residents. It will actively engage with Southside community to create a recruitment pipeline specifically targeting organizations such as Southside Community United for Change, Tri-County Urban League, Jobs Partnerships, Southside Mission, and the Peoria City County Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity. There are a number of other provisions in those conditions. I'd make a request of a friendly suggestion to the motion that Councilwoman Jackson made to make sure that it includes adding attachment D as additional conditions. And I want to apologize to council if we've offended in any way with regard to the late hour of this edition. We've been at this issue with the distillery TIF and the Southside social justice issues. You may recall that when we presented the opportunities for the distillery TIF, we sort of took that whole project timeline offline for a while to sit down with the committee members and work through how we would integrate that into the economic development agreements that we might do in that TIF. This is different because this is not an economic development agreement. This is a zoning matter, but we don't quite have a great process down. And I think Councilman Grahab's point was an excellent one. And thank you for that. We'll do better going forward with this new set of issues that we're trying to take in count as we try to modernize our South Side with sensitivity towards the residents there. I just want to apologize for any offense by how we're doing things. We're doing our best. We're trying to keep things moving, and we apologize for the late addition to your agenda. And we'll make sure that next time we line things up so the Planning and Zoning Commission, their approval encompasses this type of information. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Council. Councilmember Jackson, do you have more?
No, thank you, Council Hayes, for sharing that. It sounds like this has been a learning process for everybody involved, and so I am just still elated that everybody has been willing to share their concerns, and Councilmember Graham, they will not go unmet, so appreciate that.
You're welcome. Councilmember Valpula?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple of clarification questions. So I've went on internet to see what kind of company is this, and how many such kind of companies are there. I did not find an answer. So can anybody tell me how many companies like that exist and where they are?
Do you want to come forth?
Thank you, Council Member. Eric Lawrence with Fearless Chemical. Thanks for having me. To your question, there's only one in the entire U.S. that has this technology that takes ethanol to make ethyl acetate. Normally, it's done by oil-based products, and we are the first one to develop something of this nature.
So you're using corn-based, is that right?
We're using catalyst to do the reaction.
Can you tell me what was the reason for you to choose Peoria?
We were adjacent to a facility that was another ethanol facility. Unfortunately, the ethanol is does not play nicely with our catalyst. We have been taking ethanol from Peoria for the last 2 years, and so it made sense to move next to your supplier to improve the business process.
Just for the sake of clarity for people listening, can you tell me what is the toxicity of ethyl acetate?
That's a great question. I don't know that off the top of my head. It's not toxic. It is flammable. So it's similar to ethanol, similar to putting fuel in your vehicle.
So if you're saying similar to ethanol, it is a fire hazard.
Right? There is a flammability to it. Right. That is correct.
Okay. Do you know its solubility?
I do not off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
So actually, Madam Mayor, this kind of brings back to what Councilman Graham said. We rush on things, not knowing where we are going to. These are very simple things that we need to know, because even Tylenol, before it gets to the patient, we actually do the DMPK study. So that means we understand what it does, what kind of side effects it gives, where it gets affected, and how do you clean it up? Environmental cleanup is the most costliest thing. And are we prepared for that? Zoning, you go there for zoning, and zoning people say that, okay, this is a good opportunity, but did we do enough research to really see, we are jumping off the gun saying, oh, this is a good opportunity for South Side. I really don't know what kind of jobs and how many jobs they're going to provide. That's my first question. The second question is, really, when it's not a typical car company, you can just say, oh, it's a car company, we know how it operates. You are dealing with something which is a chemical. I've done probably 20 years of my career in that field. I understand every part of that. We don't know how it works. We don't know what it brings. So the bottom line is, are the risks outweighing the reward, or are we not? So I'm not so convinced about. I understand that it brings more jobs. I understand we need to bring more businesses. I do understand that it is very imperative to kind of help the South Side to commercialize, but at the same time, we also need to do some basic research before it comes. None of the people knows what is ethyl acetate. It's easy to say it's a, the nail paint remover. No, it's not the way it should be addressed. So I'm not convinced. I like the proposal, but I would have approved it, or I would have supported it if I had more background on what this company does, what kind of jobs does it bring, what kind of regulations do we need to approve. So this is my personal thought on it, and at this moment I'm not supporting it, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And the special, I realize that the Planning and Zoning Commission did not see these additional special conditions as it related to the zoning change, but to be honest, these don't have anything to do with the type of company, how many people are being, how many people are being hired, what types of jobs, but information about the company, what type of product they have, how it affects the environment. To my understanding, that information was relayed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I know you kind of disappeared, Mr. Larson, but if there's any additional information that you can provide to this council to help to alleviate the concerns of Councilmember Valpula relative to the chemical, I think it's mainly, is it the chemical aspect of your business? I think that would be helpful.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. To answer some of your questions, kind of caught me off the right field with the solvent. To give you an idea, it does absorb about, in water, up to 30%, and then it does separate. We do no cleanup activities. I know some of the questions were around building a emergency plan with the fire system. We currently have one in Columbus, and obviously the facility is going to be built, and before we can fully develop a plan, we have to build the facility and finalize those plans. And so that is something we love to work with the city as well as any emergency response teams to build those plans, because I have a family as well, and I want to go home at the end of the day, and I expect the same for everyone that works at that facility. So we want that plan to be right. And we do work with, as I said, with the fire chief in Columbus currently, and they do annual training every year. And so we take a very large commitment to safety at our facility. As far as employment, we will be hiring 16 operators as well as 5 lab technicians. We will be hiring maintenance staff. I don't have that number right now. It just depends on how that facility operates. The plan is usually to have 2. There are a few of us that are planning to relocate, so we do have experienced engineers and experienced mechanical. I'm the plant manager. I've been with the facility since the original construction, and so I'm planning to relocate as well to the facility, so I have 7 years' experience as well. Does this help answer any questions that I can?
I think so. Will you be working with our fire department?
Yes, we have reached out, Madam Mayor, to the fire department to ask what they would like in our plans. We have put together a rough draft of our emergency plan for construction, and then we'll move that into finalizing that for the operating facility. So attaching where we're going to put in our fire monitoring system, how we will put in our foam system to fight fires, as well as evacuate the system, and then let the community know of any issues.
Okay. Councilman.
Just to your point, if a compound is not soluble in water, it's the best thing to kind of purify. If you say it's 30% soluble, there's no way to no way to separate it out. So basically, it highlights a risk of your aquatic life, which is close to the river. So I'm not going to go deeper into the scientific aspect of it, but the point is, if it is soluble, it's very hard to kind of separate it out how much alcohol is mixed, ethyl acetate is mixed into the water. 30% solubility is still dangerous, but I understand the overall picture, overall side effects are not so toxic unless it is spilled and it is exposed in a larger quantities, just for the clarity purpose.
Yeah, thank you, Council Member. And we do have spill containment that is equivalent to our largest facility or holding facility. So if there is a spill, it is contained within our process, making sure it doesn't make it into the river.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. Mr. Larson, we have our fire leadership back there.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen.
Mayor, my question was regarding the number of jobs, and Mr. Larson answered those based off of Councilman Velpula teeing that up. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Councilmember Gordon Young.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Larson, I had a question. You may as well just stay at the podium. I know you said that the product was flammable. Have you had fires at the plant in Columbus?
We have never had a fire at our facility.
Okay. All right. That was all I needed to know. Thank you.
So could I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
We do take safety as very great. Viridis Chemical has been there for 4 years. I can thankfully say that we've had one minor OSHA recordable in those 4 years, and it was unfortunately a shovel fell down and hit somebody in the leg, and they had to have one stitch. But we take safety as a priority. So I will take all the questions about safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor and a second. I ask that you please cast your ballots. Motion passes with 1 nay, Velpula. Got that right. Madam Clerk?
24-391 is a communication from the City Manager and Finance Director Comptroller with a request to receive and file the month ended October 31, 2024 unaudited financial report.
Madam Manager? Well, Paul walks away and I can't operate.
I have here our Director Crady, to speak on the report. Monthly report.
I'll try to be as brief as I can to report. This is the report that ended for the month ended October 31st, 2024. Revenues in the general fund are down about 3.8%. If you go deeper into the packet, a lot of the explanation behind why we're seeing those numbers be slightly below is our PPRT receipts, which we reported to council on numerous occasions, are falling behind trend. The good news is we are seeing increases in both sources of our sales tax as well as our income tax receipts. So what's going to happen over kind of the remaining months, we have still about 5 months of collections of those taxes, is those increases will eat in and will continue to eat into that, really that lower number that we have. So we'll be at the end of the year still in line with what we had communicated to council during the budget process from where we're going to end the year. On the expense side, we're down about 1.2% year over year. We anticipate that will still stay in line as we kind of get towards year end. We'll still be in line with the budget that was laid out to council. And with that, I'm available if council has any other specific questions on the report, but that was general highlights of where we are in the general fund through October.
Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Crady, thank you for your time again. We didn't have any conversation to unite today, but so it might be a little unfair question, but I just want to make a point tonight to earlier conversation that my colleagues had. Tell us a little bit about HRA tax, hotel, restaurant, amusement. How much revenue do we generate from HRA tax?
We are anticipated to bring in close to somewhere between 11.5 and probably $12 million this year. I think we're anticipating that number to tick up a little bit to maybe about $12.1, $12.2 million next year.
So tell us a little bit about home rule sales tax. What do you think our revenues will be this year?
So we're anticipating our home rule sales tax number to be close to $29 million. We do have about a 2% inflationary factor assumed next year based off of what I think the general consensus around consumer spending looks like for next year. So that number will be closer to $30 million for 25.
So I heard the word many times over the last 8 years I've been here, but a few times tonight, the word collaboration. So I know there's not really an answer to my question. Maybe you do, maybe you can surprise me and no. But I'm very proud of our park district. How much revenue do you think they generate for all their operations to the HRA and to the home rule sales tax?
You are correct in saying I do not have that off the top of my head. I'm absolutely more than happy to look into it and get a report back.
No, I don't. I just want to make my point is there is collaboration between some of these entities and the city, and when we make investment, I mean they don't get the credit they should get sometime, but they are part of generating revenues of the city of Peoria through HRA and sales tax. Am I correct in saying that?
You are correct.
Thank you very much. That's all I needed to know.
Can I get you want to make a motion, Councilman Seer? Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Gordon Young. Please cast your ballots. This is a receive and file. Okay. Thanks. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, there's no more unfinished business.
If there's no unfinished business, we are at new business.
Yes. New business, Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I got 3 quick items tonight. First of all, I want to recognize the CEO of Children's Home, Scurry Miller, who's patiently sat through the meeting even after we approved the agenda item on consent. Mr. Miller has been working diligently since his arrival here a couple years ago to find transitional housing for young people who are transitioning out of foster care. And it's been a bit of a challenge, but he's come up with an amazing plan that will build 2 structures on the existing Children's Home campus. And I'm personally excited about that. It's in the 3rd district. It's going to be very compatible to the other building and that neighborhood. So thank you for your leadership in getting Children's Home to that point, and we're excited to see what those finished products will look like down the road. A second item that we approved on consent was a liquor license for Temple Live. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Temple Live, that's the group that is leasing the Scottish Rites Cathedral. So that's another great addition to our downtown area. And they'll be doing shows there, hopefully starting in early springtime. So
Exciting.
the third thing, as your representative of the Housing Commission, I work with Nicole Morrow quite a bit on staff, and Director Doolin has appointed her as kind of the point person on the homeless issue. And just so the whole council knows, Director Doolin did send an email on Friday, but the Continuum of Care has been meeting on a regular basis with the stakeholders, and that includes Pathway Ministries, I always say Pathway Financial, Pathway Ministries, Phoenix, Jolt, Lula, Salvation Army, and Dream Center, as well as our staff. And they put together a plan that the street team, which is made up, and I want to recognize these ladies for their diligence, Molly Pilgrim, and Leanne Daniels from Phoenix, and Kishi Bernard from Lula. They've been meeting with Nicole twice a week since the ordinance was passed, and they have secured housing for 23 people that have been in the encampments. So I think that shows, not to overuse the word collaboration, but when we really do work together, we're able to accomplish some things. And the work's not done by any means, and a couple things that are being thrown out as possibilities is something that Kate Green broached to me just in passing one day, and it's something Alton, Illinois does, and it's owls, overnight warming locations. And when we have these cold snaps, we open up the fire stations, the police stations, the library, but those folks aren't allowed to spend the night there. So owls would be a way that if we can find the appropriate provider, whether it's Salvation Army or whoever it could be, that they would open up a gym and we could possibly help supply cots, that we would have another option available on those cold winter nights. Having some discussion with Pathway Ministries, they have really stepped up to the plate in their commitment to not turning people away. So something else I want to throw out to council that Andy came from Dream Center approached me about was tiny homes. And this is a concept that other cities have utilized, and that's something that this working group of Kate Green's is looking at also. So keep your ears tuned to discussion on tiny homes as a possibility of something that we could engage in. So a lot of movement there, a lot of hard work yet to be done, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that work is being done. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was certainly good news to hear, Councilmember Rickenbach. I have just 2 items I wanted to bring up. I'll start with the positive. And I drive all over the city. I happened to be on Adams Street the other day and I had to stop at the intersection, I think, of Adams and Fulton. and I looked over to the left at the distillery lab. And Madam Mayor, I thought I was looking at a building in Chicago. I mean, I was like, whoa, it was beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I just want to say, 3 years ago, when that was part of my district and we were allocating funds for ARPA funds, and we gave them $100,000. And I can say from looking at the structure, the impressive structure, I can see that it was money well spent. And at some point, I'm not sure if they've been up and operational a full year yet, but I've heard about some of the things going on, and I look forward to maybe a report back. I mean, I was just really impressed that we had a building looking like that in downtown Peoria. Very impressive, very impressive. So thank you to everybody who was involved in that wonderful project. And I'm sure they won't have a problem getting tenants in and developing economic development work, jobs inside that building. The second item I want to talk about, I haven't spoken much publicly about it, but Mayor, after an incident last night, I feel compelled to talk publicly about it, and I don't like to pick on property management companies, but I have become affiliated with Wallach Properties, since 2006, and a relative lives there, and then when I got elected to the council, it became a part of my council district. I did voter registration down there. I did campaigning down there. So I have built relationships with folks down there, and I go down there. I continue to on a day-to-day basis, and I appreciate the fact that the city, I brought some items to their attention back in earlier part of this year, items that I deemed criminal activity. And we met with Wallach back in July, and things have happened. I've watched the building go from an older structure that was upgraded. They put millions of dollars into it probably about 8 years ago. And one of the comments I remembered, one of the residents saying, boy, this looks like the Père Marquette. You know, it went from a dark building to each hallway. The bottom, it was yellow, and the second floor was green and white, woodworks, and the third floor is blue. But at any rate, it went from being a beautiful structure. Wallach has, in subsequent years, purchased additional properties. And so now, instead of just having two, they have, I want to say, upwards of about 5. But as a result, I've noticed, I amounted to neglect on their part, because right now there's no staff, there's no general manager, there's no housekeeping, there's no maintenance, and most importantly, they no longer have security, which they had about 8 years ago. So I've noticed as I go there on a regular basis, increase in drug sales, prostitution in and around the property, robbery of elderly residents, assault of staff over the summer, daily trespassing, people who don't live there sleeping in the stairwells, trash cans. I was there Monday morning before I went to work between 6:30 and 7 a.m. As I went in, a man who did not live there walked in behind me, and I said something to him, and I, talked about the cameras, and there's cameras on the premises. Unfortunately, they haven't been working, but trash goes days on end without being emptied. The dumpster in the back has furniture everywhere. And last night, Mayor, as I went over to check on a relative, community room was full. Folks were having a great time. I noticed water on the floor of the doorway, and I said, what happened? They said, we don't know. I turned my back to go down the hallway, and I noticed Sewage. I thought it was water. It was sewage. 3 feet, three feet wide. There was a vent. Obviously, it was spewing out. Looked further down, and then in the second vent. And so I looked to the right, and the doorway that you approach the other hall, there was a water spot developing there. I got on the phone and called the assistant chief and told him, and I had been on the phone with him in the morning about a similar incident. And so he started making phone calls. And so, make a long story short, before I left, I ended up calling the fire chief, who sent down the fire truck. This is probably the fourth incident that happened outside of business hours. There was a fire one night at about between 9 and 10, and nobody's around. During the summer, there was a power outage. On Sunday, I stopped over 8:30. They said, we've been without power since before midnight last night. Last night was another example, and I shared that with the assistant chief, who did everything in his power to get city staff down there. Wallach on the phone in Indiana, but to make a long story short, when I left there, I was overly concerned because I wasn't sure that the folks on the first floor would be able to stay in the place last night. There was so much sewage coming up out of the vents. And so if I could, Mr. Corporation Counsel, Mr. Hayes, I would like to convene another meeting at some point, similar to what we did in July. At that time, you talked about options, and you gave them a deadline, sir. The city did. And while they have done some things, they haven't done enough because, in my estimation, the standard of living has just declined, and folks are left on their own. And it seems like incidents like what I observed last night tend to happen during a time when there's nobody around. It's after 5 p.m., but I was just appalled at what I observed last night. And so one of the things the city had shared with them in the meeting we had in July was that if they had a deadline, they needed to put together a viable plan of operations, or else the city could take control of the building. And so with there not being staff there, working staff, full-time staff at all right now, I'm just concerned about safety. I'm concerned about the standard of living. We're talking about seniors. We're talking about double amputees. We are talking about folks who don't have anybody to advocate on their behalf. So if we could, Mr. Hayes, and I don't know if Director Doolin is around, I would like to have another follow-up emergency meeting, because after what I observed last night, I'm just concerned. I'm very concerned, not just for the folks that I know, but everybody in the building. We're talking about 3 stories and 70-plus residents. And so if we could, sir, because I'm not sure what fully transpired. I know the city sent its folks down there and told them they had so many minutes to get a contractor down there. But I've never seen anything so bad in my life, and to not have adequate response from the property management company. It's just very, very disturbing to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman. We'll make sure to reach out to Wallach and insist on a follow-up meeting similar to the last one to see what they've done, what they haven't done, and try to develop a plan to move forward. Thank you.
One other thing I heard come up tonight, and I'm not sure, somebody talked about policy sessions with regards to, this was on another topic, and I'd even be willing to look at, I don't know what the city's ordinance says with regards to property management companies, but I do know there are others in the city that have wonderful properties. People are safe. I talked to a woman back in the summer at another facility. She spent over an hour, And I was just convinced that if they saw it as a viable investment security, the things that they were doing, I couldn't understand why a company as large as Wallach could not see the value in a similar plan for all of its facilities, considering the amount of money they have spent on rehabilitating this facility. So policy session might be something we could possibly explore as an option. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other new business? Okay. I would like to invite a motion to adjourn and to convene in closed session immediately following the adjournment of the City Council meeting pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I believe we have a couple of citizen comments.
I'm sorry.
I believe we have a couple of citizen cards who want to speak.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
We have two comments. Thank you for interrupting me. We have two cards for public comment. Sorry to jump ahead, Madam Clerk. First speaker is Randall Swinson.
I live at 3516 West Elmwood Court. It's in the Golden Acres subdivision, which is in District 4. This summer, Ameren hired a contractor called Intercon to put new gas lines and gas services in the subdivision. And to do this, they would dig a pit in front of each house, and they would push the gas line from pit to pit, and then use the pit to push the service up to the house, and then backfill the pit and patch the street. And our subdivision, there's no curb and gutter or storm sewers. It's just very shallow ditches. And when they dug the pit by my house, about 10 feet away on the neighbor's property, there's a culvert that goes underneath the street. And they dug the pit and they buried the culvert. And then when they went across the street for the neighbor's house, they dug a pit and buried the other end of the culvert. And every opportunity I had, pointed out to the contractor's employees that there's a culvert under here that's buried. And they always said, well, we'll tell the foreman when we see him, but nothing ever happened. Finally, complaining to the city, Cy Maroon's been very helpful with contacting the contractor and Ameren. The contractor showed up, they dug out the end of the culvert and discovered that it's been plugged. And they said they would be back on Monday to repair it. Well, that was 3 months ago. I would say, and a representative from Ameren's been out there at least 3 times to look at the situation, and they say they're going to take care of it, and they never have. So with this plugged culvert, every time we have a nice rain, the entire front of my house is a lake, and I would have to put on boots even to get to the mailbox. Cy Maroon's done all he can. Ameren keeps promising they're going to fix it, and they don't fix it. And I shared it earlier before the meeting here with Councilman Allen, and he's going to go to work on it. But I'd just like to see this problem get fixed.
Thank you, sir. We'll work with Councilmember Allen to follow up with you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jessamine Hill, Jess.
Good evening, everybody. There's 2 things I wanted to bring forward. Number 1, the idea to either fine and or arrest homeless people just for being homeless. So how are you going to get the money from a homeless person to pay a fine for being homeless? You're going to take their panhandling money, or you're going to strip them naked and sell all the clothes off their back, including their material possessions? And what good would it be to send them to jail? Who's going to foot the bill on them? The taxpayer? And worse than that, you go to jail, now you got a pox on your record. How are they going to get housing? How are they going to get resources? How about when they exit from homelessness and they want to get a house, and now they can't because, oh, sorry, you've been to jail, we can't take you. And I understand that there are homeless folks out there where you can't help them because they don't want to be helped. Say, psychiatrists, doctors, friends, family, law enforcement, social workers, they have exhausted every effort to help the individual and they can't be helped. And second of all, I want to also speak about that chicken proposal which y'all sent to the purgatory during the summertime. I don't know, maybe it has something to do with your term being up next year, Mayor, or the other folks here who are going to be running for mayor next year. But I think it was a mistake to get rid of that proposal. I mean, send it to the purgatory. That proposal was important. Think about the folks living south of Forest Hill Avenue who don't have a full-service grocery store. I thought we were a liberal, progressive city and Black Lives Matter, especially in the neighborhoods where we have to live off of hot chips and color sugar water. I mean, raising chickens would be beneficial. And I've driven around town and I've seen a couple of, would it be illegal chicken coops? Certain streets, what are we gonna do? You're gonna send animal control over, gather up all those chickens and kill them and feed them to the dogs and cats waiting for homes? And especially don't let the media scare you about the bird flu. We haven't heard about that lately, probably because it's an election year. And that's all I wanted to bring forward.
Thank you. Okay. All right, wait just a minute. I gotta find my little note here. What do I do with it?
No, Mayor? Do you have it?
I would like to invite a motion to adjourn and to convene in closed session immediately following adjournment of the City Council meeting pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/2C11 to discuss pending litigation, and pursuant to Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/2C21 for approval by the body of closed session minutes. Moved by Councilmember Seer, seconded by Councilmember Euler. Please cast your ballots. We are adjourned. Thank you. Last meeting of the year.